Right, just confirm that you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Do you want me to hold on 1 minute, Amy, or should we get going?
We've got a good number on, so we should just get going, I think, and people are still dialing.
Okay. Great stuff. Okay, well, good morning, everybody. Hopefully you're on the right webinar. So today we're gonna look at SAP data processing, automation, and governance. I'm going to show a mixture of technology all through Bluestonex's Maextro application. So in terms of the agenda, we're just going to give you a brief overview of what Maextro is, the components of Maextro, and the architecture. And then my good friend and colleague, Mr. Feroz Khan, is going to give you a demo, and we're going to cover kind of mass processing and business as usual processing of data, but with a wraparound governance structure. We're going to show you how you can customize the solution and explain what Maextro delivers you out of the box with rapid deployment templates. Then we're going to look at part of Maextro called Align. So this is kind of cleaning up dirty data based on business rules that Maextro holds. And then finally, I'm just going to show you how we use Maextro with different flavors. So we can use the SAP Cloud Platform and also on-premise Fiori applications alongside it. So we're going to cover things like user experience, APIs for integration, and SAP Analytics Cloud, which is a great reporting solution from SAP. I won't spend too much time on this slide. These are the two felons on the call today that will be talking. This is myself, Dan, and Feroz, who's the solution owner of Maextro. So just very quickly about us, for those of you that don't know who we are. So Bluestonex is a UK-based company formed in 2012, and the X really of Bluestonex is about innovation and user experience. So what we typically do, we work on a number of user experience initiatives, but we also look for gaps in SAP software, and we'll build products. So as you can expect, we're an SAP partner. We've also got a lab out in India, as well as the UK and the West Midlands, and yeah, we're qualified in design as well as master data and user experience and SAP Cloud Platform. This is our design center in Shropshire, which was due to open just before COVID-19 kind of hit. And it's a creative space where we run workshops with customers, scoping and creating new applications. So we're part of the App House network. So we're one of 11 partners globally that are part of the App House network. So it's basically the house of apps. Yeah, and for us, we have a church that we've refurbished. So to run on to Maextro then, so what is Maextro? So essentially, it is an SAP add-on, so whether you're ECC or S/4HANA, and it will cover all master data objects. And what I mean by that is your typical material masters, bill of materials, routines, vendors, customers, GL accounts, project systems, so on and so forth. And Maextro gives you the ability to not only manage the technical side of those objects, but more importantly, the workflow and the processes that reside. Maextro has its own kind of business rule engine, which we're going to show you a little bit of. And we've obviously got analytics and things like that. So it's a complete wraparound solution for managing master data. The big selling point really from a Maextro point of view is, we've spent hundreds of thousands of man hours really creating a configuration menu. So you should be able to configure Maextro yourselves without the need for deep technical knowledge, which is a big plus when you compare it to other products out on the market. So there's three real elements to Maextro really. We have the core engine, which we're going to focus on today, as well as Align. So the core engine is where you do configuration and you hold your business rules and workflow. And then Align is a feature that actually takes the business rules that you've got and will query data and clean up data in mass. Okay, so these are the two bits that we're going to focus on today. Obviously, as part of the Maextro core engine, we have things like duplicate checks. So we call it Ditto. Yeah, so it's a kind of a dupe check based on criteria that you configure. And how Maestro will work, and this is consistent typically across any object, you know, and whether it's creating new material master, changing material master, or extending master data, I should say, it will follow a very similar process, which will be a request is raised, and then a series of tasks will kick out, and that might be approval tasks or data gathering tasks. Some of them will be completed by business rules, and eventually it will come to final approval and therefore updating SAP and other subsequent systems. So whatever we do in Maestro, it follows very similar flows. Now I can see there's a quick poll on the screen there for people. So hopefully you guys will fill this in, how much of your colleagues' time is spent on. So I'm gonna leave that one there with you. In terms of the architecture then, before we jump into demo, really, we have a core engine which sits within your SAP system. So whether you're ECC6 or whether you're S/4HANA, it's a shipped via transports into your system, and you have all the expected fields that you'd find within master data for each object. You have what we call templates, which we're going to touch on, which basically covers process and rules. But we ship it with predefined templates. So we give you a starter for 10. Yeah, so for a material master process or a customer master process, we have a template that we ship to customers that gets them moving very, very quickly. Obviously, the rules are different by business. So typically rules are configured individually, but we'll show you the rule engine and that type of stuff. And then customers have options around user interfaces. So what the end user looks and what he sees. So it can be traditional SAP GUI, or we use a mixture of SAP Screen Persona and SAP UI5, all designed within the Fury designs. Again, we'll come back to this. So just to position where the solution fits in. So if you're running ECC6, Maestro will help you run, you know, your initial data health assessment. So the use of a line is very useful. You can see what sort of state of data that you're in. But what we typically advise is to run Maestro for your business as usual, so you can govern master data that's being created, changed, and extended. Yeah, so a lot of people do spend a lot of time cleaning up data, but we focus quite heavily on establishing a process to govern data, because by doing this, you quickly start cleaning up your legacy data. So yeah, this is what we would recommend for ECC customers. Obviously, Maestro is there to help you recognize what's not working. It's there to establish a governance process. And we've also got some nice intuitive applications that live in the cloud platform, but also can live on your on-premise systems if you are running Fury apps. And the same for S4. So this is a typical S4 adoption where you would run your Maestro health checks and align processes. You would do all your data migration using the SAP tools that you have. You will need to do a conversion of customer and vendor into business partners. Once you're on S/4HANA, you carry the same processes across. So you govern your master data, because again, what we see with a lot of people, they do a lot of effort in cleaning up data. They move to S/4HANA and then data starts getting in a mess again. So you need Maestro there, whether you're ECC or S4, to help you with your ongoing governance of data. Okay, so that positions it. Where do we compare? Well, there are lots of solutions out there. I won't labor too much on this. I'm sure people are familiar with SAP MDG, Master Data Governance. There are other solutions that you use when you're doing migrations to S4 and things like that. Maestro will tick a lot of the boxes, as you can see there. The thing that Maestro in this release that we're going to show you won't cover is multiple SAP ERP systems. We can talk to other systems within your SAP estate, of course, but we wouldn't typically cover multiple ERP systems. Okay, right, let's get into showing you some stuff, because I think I've spoken quite a bit about this. So what we're going to cover here in the mass processing is this typical scenario. So it's not a typical end user thing. So this would be a data steward wanting to create a request within Maestro to launch a series of products in one request, okay? And obviously that request is going to come into a data owner to approve and do the mass upload. So a lot of businesses, they might use Excel spreadsheets, LSMWs, that type of stuff. Maestro can take care of this, yeah? But now we're wrapping some governance around NS, all living within your SAP system. So this is a process that we're going to show. Just to explain what's going to happen, so we're going to put on a request, and in that request, Maestro is going to start collecting some of these data. Yeah, so this is a typical material master process. However, within Maestro, we can expand. So we're not just talking about MMO1, material master. We can do stuff around inspection plans, control cycles, which typically sit outside of that MM01 transaction for creating master data. So we're going to put on a request. Maestro is going to take care of all this, and we're going to send it off for approval, where that approval step is automatically going to create the data. So with that, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to hand across to my colleague, Feroz.
Thank you, Dan. Just confirm if you can see my screen, please.
Yes, we can.
Brilliant, thank you. So, morning, everyone. Hopefully you can all see my screen. So this is my Fiori Launchpad I'm going to use for demo today. To launch a Maestro application. Along with the Maestro application, I've got various other two apps here, which Dan will touch base upon at the end of this demo. So to begin with, I'm going to first raise a new request within Maestro. As Dan was explaining, somebody will have to go and create a request in Maestro. So this is my app. I'm using Slipstream here to raise a new request. So this is an initial request header within Maestro, which the user needs to populate. So from the drop down, I'm selecting what I'm doing here. So I'm creating a new request here. I could also do a change and extend and align, which we'll cover it later as well. So I'm doing a new request. I'm doing against the material master. So depending upon the authorization and the license you have purchased, you'll see all those objects appearing in there. And then a brief description. So as a requester, you can put any description here. It doesn't need to be name of the material master or anything. It can be just a brief description about why am I raising that request. And then the org divisions. So I can select the org division. So this is just an org division within Maestro. We use it purely for reporting purposes there. You can group in different company codes, different plants into one business unit for reporting. Same goes with the reason code. So again, this is purely used for reporting purposes within Maestro. You can define your own reason codes. Priority, high, low, medium, again used for reporting purposes. Everybody selects high in this case. And the templates, these are very important ones. So the one we're going to look at is the mass, which Dan was explaining. So templates binds your process. So when I say process, it's the workflow, how many steps you want. And also it brings together all the rules that are associated with the process, which we're going to look in as well when we do the demo. So I'm selecting my mass demo template. Again, this is based on my authorization. Different users can have access to different templates within your organization. Okay. Now, as soon as I've selected that, you would see that it's come up with an expected completion date, which again, I'll cover it in later. This is based on the SLAs, like how long does it take me to do this process or to create a product within SAP. Okay, so I'm just going to minimize my header now. So this is the first screen the user get to see. What we call this as a initial request form. Everything you see on the screen, it can be configured within Maestro. So when I say configured, the number of fields you see on the screen, the field label that appears on the screen, the attributes and the default values. So for instance, you can see that for the weight unit, I have defaulted the values in there and the gross weights and the net weight. So everything can be configured via Maestro depending upon your requirement. So for demo purposes, all I want the user to fill in the number of materials he needs to create. Okay, so either the user can type in the material description, or I have a cheat here. I've just got everything in my Excel. I'm just going to go and copy and paste here. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating 5 materials. Now, because the material number is internally generated, so you can see that Maestro has generated the material number internally. Because Maestro lives within SAP, so Maestro can talk directly to SAP as well. So all the validations and everything is happening real time here. You don't need any other additional hookups or APIs to do it. So this is my first initial request form, a lean form, which we call it. And as I said, you can define this form directly in Maestro. And then all I need to do is just mark status complete. And then this is the important one. This is what we call as an org view. So here what I'm doing is I'm creating those 5 materials, not just across one plant, but across 2 plants. You can add as many plants as you want. So you are really creating and extending at the same time. So that's the power of Maestro here. So I'm happy with that. Yeah, I go on status complete. Then the same applies to my sales organization data. Again, I'm happy with this. I want to create it. I'm creating it across the warehouse as well. So you can keep on adding all the org units you want in there. And this is the MRP view. So those who are familiar with how MMO works. So this is the first view. I want the requester to see it. You don't have to put it in front of requester, but I know the requester would like to change the plant delivery time in here. So that's why the field is there. Otherwise, you can also default most of the values. As you can see, I've defaulted the GR processing time in here. So I'm happy with this. I'm just going to go and mark status complete. And I come to the purchasing view here. Again, on the purchasing view, all I want the requester is to fill in the purchasing group here. Again, you can see that I have defaulted all the values were in here. Now, the ideal scenario for Maestro is all the rules and you can default all the values in for. That's a perfect scenario. The user have to do nothing in here. So just to show you how quick and easy it is in Maestro to do this sort of rule. So you can see here for plant 1000, I have defaulted the purchasing group as 10. And for plant 2000, I have defaulted purchasing group as 20. So I'm just going to quickly jump onto my SAP system in here and show you how the values are defined here. So this is my template, which I was using earlier. So this is Maestro configuration screen. So don't worry about this too much for now, about the technical details. So these are all the rules that goes against my template. So if I just show you some of the rules, so you can see here, this is my purchasing view I put in. So how easy it is, you can put the view name, you can put the field name, and you can say that the value for this field is 10, depending upon certain condition. Then you can start to put in conditions saying, if the value of the purchasing plant is equal to 1000, then the value of the purchasing group should be 20, and then it should be 20 here if it is the plant is 2000. So you can see how easy it is. You can see it gets populated in here based on the rules you define via config within Maestro. Okay. Then again, I'm happy with this. I don't want to make any more changes. I do status complete. I move on to my QM data as well. You can see most of the values I had defaulted in there. I have got some export data in there, if somebody needs to change it. Then I come to my accounting view. Again, you would know all the valuation class and everything, and then you mark status complete and you move on. And that's it. I'm done with, checking all my data in there. And then at this stage, I'm going to do is create a request. So what's going to happen is Maestro is going to create a request. A unique number is generated. An email notification should kick in at this stage. Everybody who's responsible for that workflow should get an email in their Outlook box. They can go and click, and then they can directly come into Maestro. Or I can also go into my task list here and see what all my open requests. So you can see here, because I'm the approver in this case, I can see this task is waiting for me to be processed. So nothing has happened in SAP yet. All the data we created in the initial request form is still within Maestro internal tables, what we call as staging tables. So now as an approver, I'm going to go in here and check all my data and approve it. So what I'm going to do is either I can just flick through the views, or I can go on show views, and then in the background you can see that it's creating all this data in there for you. So it's creating the inspection plan, it's creating the control cycles. So as an approver, I can click on individual views and change it, or because it's all going to be mostly driven by rules and the validation all is taking place, I might just go and say, okay, mark status complete here all. So as a request, as an approver now, what I'm doing is I'm validating all the data in here. What Maestro is doing at this stage is applying all the default value rules and validating all my data in here, and it marks the status complete. So if everything goes well, it'll come up with this message, and I'm going to just say, yeah, go ahead and mark approve, mark status is complete. It's done that. Now at this stage, I'm just going to approve the data. Now this is where the BAPIs, the standard SAP BAPIs are called in to create the material master. So I'm going to say, yeah, go ahead and create all those 5 material across 2 different plants. So the BAPI is now running, validating all the data, and you can see that all my materials across all different plants have been successfully created. So you get all these messages in the BAPI log, what we call them. You can see that I've created the inspection plans, I've created the control cycles as well. So just to quickly show you that the material was created successfully, I'm just gonna go and show you in MMO3. So if I click MMO3 in here, so this was 47 was my material that was created. So you can see here, this is the one I just created, and it created across 2 different plants, which was 1,000 and 2,000. So that's the simple, quick, and easy way of creating material in SAP by mass templates. Okay, so at this stage, I think Dan, I hand it over to you to explain a bit more about the other process before I demo it.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, thanks for that, Faraz. Yeah, so hopefully, Faraz, you see my screen?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, so yeah, we obviously that demo of mass is incredibly powerful. So if you think about it, you can create multiple materials against multiple entities. So it is incredibly powerful, especially when you add in the workflow, the business rules. It can be very, very quick, but also you're wrapping governance around it. So similarly with mass, obviously mass is normally something that, yeah, it might be part of an acquisition or something like that. But for business as usual processing, what we typically see is an end user putting on a request, coming into a data steward for review. So they might actually review duplicate checks and things like that. And then things will get distributed depending on your workflow. But if you can imagine material master or even customer or vendor master, you might have a request that comes in that needs to be distributed amongst the business departments. Yeah, so finance, planning, whatever it is. So Maextro will distribute that workflow, again, using rules. And eventually, once that data is collected, it will come into the data owner for approval and creation of that object. So again, very, very powerful solution. So again, I'm going to come back to you, Faraz. I've pitched the scene. We're now in business as usual for an end user putting on a request, and this is going to show a distributed workflow. And then for the audience, just bear in mind, obviously we're showing material master here because it's one of the most complex ones, but it could be a vendor, it could be customer, it could be GL account, whatever data object in SAP. Okay,
brilliant. Thanks, Dan. So I'm sharing my screen again. Let me know if you can see that.
Yeah, see it first.
Yeah, so I'm back onto my Fiori Launchpad here. Again, in this instance, I'm going to raise a new request now. This time, I'm just going to create a single material via distributed process. So again, same process, new request. Object is my material master, and then a brief description, demo single material. Okay, org division, again, reporting purposes, you can select it. Reason codes, whatever reason codes, priority, high, low, medium. And this time around, I'm going to select an RDS template for just the single material, which is in a distributed environment. So as soon as I've selected the material now, what Maextro is asking me is to search. So this is part of our governance saying the best policy is you search before you create. Okay, now you have all the search criteria in here. We could add more or take off some of the search criteria if you don't need it. So I'm just going to quickly search based on the generic term here, which, you know, my favorite, cookies. So you know, you can put in the text in there and search it. I could have also searched on different attributes in there, and Maextro would then go and find all the matching description and tell me that these are all the matching description within SAP. Do you want to still go ahead and create it? In this case, I know I need to create it. I need a different pack, so I'll go ahead and create it. Again, you know, as I was explaining earlier, Maextro would come up with an expected completion date in here. Now, this is based on my SLAs, which we have defined for the process. Now, what the process looks like, just to give you a brief intro onto this process and the distributed environment. So if I click on my process list, so this is the process we're going to follow. So you have the first step in the approval step in the workflow. So once I raise a new request, somebody will have to go and approve the request, then follows it by a distributed environment where every person in the business is responsible for certain part of the material master. So those who are familiar with material master, you have different views within material master. One is a purchasing view, MRP view, sales, finance, and things like that. So you can build up your nice process in there depending upon your requirement. You can start to assign the owner groups, and then Maestro would tell us exactly when it needs to be done depending upon your SLA. So, you know, if you start today, then by the time you finish it, it'll be 18th of June. Okay. Now, as Dan was explaining earlier, Maestro is all about managing processes. So we are not just limited to material master here. What you can do is once the final approval is done, you can keep on adding a follow-on functions here, or it could be just a reminder task. You can say, once my material is done, go and create my bill of materials. You can also call your own routines to object Z tables, transfer data into APU, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's a brief process that we have for this template. And then again, the process is exactly the same. The requester is given a lean form here. You can see that we have massively shrunk down the basic data view one. So those who know how complex the basic data one view is, you can remove all the clutter on the screens and just say, give it to the requester to fill in these 5 fields in here. Okay. You can just put in any description of the material in here. Base unit of measure, again, type in there. Material groups, you can select it from the drop down. All the F4 search helps, all the validation is happening directly from within SAP. You don't need to set up anything extra within Maestro. It's all coming in directly from your SAP system. You can see that we could make certain fields mandatory in here. You know, some fields which are not mandatory in SAP can also be made mandatory within Maestro. So that's a power of you provide an additional layer of checks within Maestro.
So
okay.
I'll just come in here, Faraz, just to explain. So from a user experience point of view, obviously, if the user doesn't need to interact with fields, you decide not to put them on the screen. You can control drop down. So obviously in SAP on that material group example, Maestro is just calling standard search, okay? But you can create your own drop-down lists. So instead of showing 300 values in a drop-down list, you could build a rule where you would just show the 8 that are relevant. Ideally, you want to default things, but clearly sometimes you can't. The user has to decide.
Yeah. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, so you can also have your own defined list in there if you need to massively simplify the screens. Yeah. So I'm done with the basic data view. Again, the process is exactly similar to what we're seeing in the mass. I move on. Again, I'm creating one material across 2 plants. So I'm creating and extending at the same time. I move on. I've got sales org. I'm creating, again, one sales org. And then this time around, I'm doing it across 4 different warehouses. You can have as many warehouses as you want. That's it. I'm done with it because as a requester, all I needed to do was just fill in the basic data view one there. And then all I'm going to do is the create request. Again, at this stage, a unique number is generated. Email should trigger in for the next person who's in line to approve the request. They'll get an email notification, or I can jump into my task list and then I can go in here and then look at the process. So this is my typical task list, what we call them in Maestro. So, because I'm an administrator here, I get to see all the steps in here. But usually if I'm only responsible for purchasing data, I would see purchasing data. Or if I'm only responsible for finance, I'll see only finance. So I can quickly go into this because this is the first step in the process that's ready for me. So this is an approval step. It's like gatekeeper here. I'm going to check what the requester has asked for. Either I can reject it or send it for the review. Also, there's some nice functionality here. As a approver, I can look at the search history and I say, make sure a person has searched before creating the material. But if I'm happy, I'm just going to flick through the views in here just to check what I'm being asked to create. I'm just going to approve it. I'm just going to mark status complete and move on. And then at this stage, all I'm going to do is approve the request. Okay. So at this stage, the request is approved, which means the process can move on. the material hasn't been created in SAP yet because it's still in the staging tables within Maestro. You can then decide at what stage you want to create the materials in SAP. That's again controlled via config screens in Maestro. So I'm going to quickly jump onto the create basic data view screen. I'm not going to go through all the screens in here. So again, in this step, you can see the look and feel in Maestro is exactly similar to what we've seen in the MAS or any other process step. So as a basic data view screen here, I'm going to see the data that has been put in by the requester. I'm going to mark status complete. And then as part of the basic data step, I've been asked to complete in the units of measure. So, again, you can see that most of the values have been defaulted here. So this is power of Maestro. Again, you can have all your units of measure defaulted so people don't miss out on this. So I've done with it. All I'm going to do is save. Maestro knows that I've completed all the views that have been asked in this step, and the step would be closed. Then I move on to the next step in the process. So the next step in the process in this case is going to be my purchasing data. So just quickly, I just want to touch base upon this feature, what we have in Maestro, what we call as a distributed workflow. So you can see that the purchasing view is spread across 2 different owner groups. So what you can do within Maestro is based on the org units, in this case plant, you can distribute the same data across 2 different owner groups. Because my purchasing data team could be separate, could be sitting in 2 different divisions. So within Maestro config screens, what you can do is you can quickly define these sort of rules. So just to show you how this rule works, again, I'm going to quickly jump on to my config screens here. So this is the Maestro IMG screens, which you would normally use to configure Maestro. So this is I'm going into my process. This is my material master. And I know my process code is P004. This is the demo process I'm using. And these are all the process steps you had in there, which I was showing you earlier. And this is the purchasing step number 30. Okay, now if you go on to the details of it, you can see that this is marked as org dependent workflow. And what I have done here is said, if the value of the plant is 1,000, then the owner group should be this. And if the value of the plant 2,000, and such a different owner group. So Maestro would then, based on those owner groups, will split across your two different tasks for you. So when I go in here, all I would see is, yeah, I get to see the basic data view, but I only see the values for plant 1,000. And you can see most of the values have been defaulted. Again, this is my perfect ideal scenario where I know all the values I needed. If you need to, you can also input manually, but I'm just going to mark status complete and then move on and save the task. Okay, and then it closes the task.
Now, again, I'll just chip in here, Farah. So, like typically with a lot of other solutions, you need to write business rules via ABAP, right? So within Maestro, it's not. It's more like, it's almost like just a statement that you put like an Excel formula almost in config. So we're stripping away all that technical reliance, and you are able to build rules and configure your workflow really, really easily. And that is very, very powerful.
Yeah. So I'm not going to go through all the steps now because, as I said, they are exactly the same whether I'm doing a purchasing or a sales or finance. That's the beauty of Maestro. You have one consistent way of working. And this is across all the objects, whether I'm doing a vendor or a customer or a GL account. So yeah, I hope you guys get the gist of it because I'm just conscious of time, Dan. So should we move on to Align then?
Yeah, perfect. I'll come back to just the PowerPoint just to explain. So we've covered a little bit of customizing there, guys. Just to explain, as part of customizing, we have rapid deployment solutions, which are pre-configured templates. Yeah. So it gives you processes as a starter for 10. Obviously, most businesses, if you can adopt a template and just run with it, like we've shown you, they're examples of the templates. Brilliant. What we find is during workshops with customers, they might have something slightly different where their workflow might need another step in there. And again, it's configurable. And these templates are kind of, yeah, they're from our learnings of working with customers on what are best practice processes when we talk about data. And as I said, like we have templates for Material Master, So you can see here, the typical one is create request, approve request, and then data gathering, which is a distributed workflow, which Farrell's has just shown you, and a final approval, which will update the data. Same for customer master. So create request, approve the request, do some duplicate checks, and then we might need to go to finance, and we might need to go to purchasing. We might even need to go and run some credit checks as well, which we can do. Okay, and then final approval. And then interestingly, on a lot of processes we do around business partners or customers and vendors, you might have follow-on functions that you want to incorporate. So whether that's creating a sales contract or whether it's creating sales pricing, Maestro can handle it. Yeah, because Maestro's very keen on what the process is, rather than it's not really interested about the limitations around data. It's more about the process. So that's the kind of RDS for customer. This is the rapid deployment solution for vendor. Very similar. Create request, approve request, go off this finance, approve the data, and again, it might be info records or contracts that we need to collect. So yeah, conscious of time, so I just quickly want to talk about what is this whole align. Yeah, what is align? So align is basically a governance mechanism within Maestro, and what it's doing is once you've established some business rules, we can run queries against your data and look at those business rules and see where those rules have been broken. So we can analyze the results and then approve the data, which will do mass cleanup. Yeah, so this is about running my business policies, my business standards over my legacy data, cleaning it up. Now, if you're running Maestro from day dot, you're never going to need really align. Yeah, it's only really for things like acquisitions where you'd probably run an align query. So on that note, again, what Faraz is going to show you is the creation of the request, and we're going to review the results of that align request, and it's going to come into a data owner to approve so that the data gets aligned. So Faraz, over to you again.
Thanks, Dan. So I'm sharing my screen again. Dan, let me know if you can see it. Okay. So I'm back into my old GUI world. So the idea is to just show you, Align can be run and deployed within days rather than weeks. So, we send you to transports, you just deploy it without, you can run it without any UI, you can run it directly in GUI screens as well. So I've logged on to my normal SAP GUI screen here. So this is my Maestro main menu. I'm gonna go and create the request. So obviously the screen looks different in GUI to what we have seen in Slipstream earlier. So again, but the process is exactly the same. I say request type is align in this case, and then we're just going to look at aligning the customer master data in here in this case. Okay, so and a brief description here. Org divisions, I just select the org divisions I need to. Again, the reason codes in here, high, low, medium, and then the template. So I've got only one template in this group. Okay, now this is the selection criteria you have for align. So what I'm saying here is I'm selecting all the data for last 10 years. So I'm saying, give me all the customer that has been created in last 10 years across all these account groups, across all these company codes. So I'm selecting it from 1,000 to 5,000. This is what I have. We have various other selection criteria like sales cutoff and FI. Let's not go into this. And all I need to do is mark status complete, and I save the request. Now what's happening here, you can see that it's reading the data from SAP, but also at the same time it's applying the rules within Maestro, which you have built in as part of your BAU functions as well. So the request is created now. Again, emails would trigger from within Maestro to respective owners to go and review the data. So what Align has done is read the data, apply the rules, and then now it's ready for somebody to go and review the data. So I log on to my task list, and you can see here the request is open now, ready for me to review the data. So as a reviewer now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly go in here in the screen and review the data. So now what this is telling me, this report or this screen is telling me this, these are all the customers which has got bad records in there, which violates all my rules that have been defined against those templates. So a quick stats on this one. So you can see that it's red 156 customers, out of which 148 are bad. So it's really bad data. 95% of my customers are bad in this instance, or they violate some sort of rules. Now, what rules they violate, you can clearly see in the same screen here. So this is the customer in here, and I've applied this rule called as AL01. And what the rule is, so you can click in here and tell me what the rule is. So the rule is, if the account group is any one of these, then my max partial delivery should not be 0 or space. So, and that's why, because there is a 0 in here in the current value, that's why this has appeared. And then if you look at this rule in here, which is telling me, if my account group is this, then the shipping condition should always be 0, 1. In this case, the current shipping condition is null. And what Maestro then cleverly does is, because Maestro knows that the value of this should be 0, 1, it defaults it to value 0, 1. And I tell you why this is so powerful when we look at all the reports. So the other layout, quick layout to look at this is what we call as a tree layout. So if I quickly go in this tree layout, you can quickly sort it by the count, and then you can clearly see who are the bad ones in here. You can see that this is the first customer who has got maximum 5 in here. You can also group it by the rules, so you can then start to see where my rules are, which rules have got maximum bad customers in here. So you can clearly see that the first rule itself has got maximum customers that does not conform to those rules. So in this case, either my rule is incorrect or out of date, or there's something really wrong with my master data in here. Okay. Now I go back to my task list. So what next now? Well, I've seen the data is bad. So what you could do, you could start going correcting the data in that. So how do I correct my data? So I go in my screen here. So this is again a Maestro screen. You can start and going update all your data if you know what data you need to put in. So I go and click save, and then you can see it goes green and it corrects it. So wherever Maestro can't suggest you the value, you'll have to go and correct the data manually in the screens. Okay. Now, wherever it can correct the data, what you can do is you can use this functionality, what we call a select auto correction. So what I could do is I could just select the records that can be auto corrected. Maestro would know that some of the values can be auto corrected. So I just select them, I apply the mask correction. So what Maestro is doing is correcting the data for me. Now the data has all been corrected in here. Now when I say data has been corrected, is still within Maestro internal tables. The data hasn't gone in anywhere because I want an additional approval step in this case. So I've corrected the data whatever I could, but I don't want to now go and correct the rest of the data. I'm fine with it. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to close the task, and then the process then moves on. So in this case now, the next step in the process is for somebody to check the data and approve it. So as an approver of this align now, I go into the same screen and I look at what corrections has been applied. I can look at the change log. The change log is going to tell me that somebody has corrected my payment history records. All the fields that has been corrected as part of my review process. You can clearly see somebody has changed the shipping conditions as well. So as an approver, then if I'm okay with it, I can approve the data, or I can reject it back to the reviewer and say, okay, I'm not happy with it. Now in this case, I'm happy with whatever the data corrections was applied. And as an approver, all I'm going to do now is approve the data. Now, at this point in time, a BAPI is then called, which updates all my customer master records to the right value that has been assigned as part of the rules. And then the process ends. So this is a quick way of identifying the bad records, as well as correcting your bad records as well. And there's a lot of KPIs associated with this, and that which Dan will touch base upon. Okay. That's it, Dan. I think I'm just conscious of the time, so there's nothing much to show on the line. Move on then to you.
Yep, sure. But again, like just to emphasize what we're actually talking about when we talk about Align is obviously you build your business rules within Maestro, which reflects your business policies. And then you can query the data and cleanse the data. As I'm saying, the important thing, not to detract from Align, is that once you've established your business as usual and your business policies and rules within Maestro, you can then use it for ongoing data governance, but also retrospective cleansing, such as Align. Okay, let's talk about user experience and use of the cloud platform. So hopefully a lot of you folks watching today would probably be underwhelmed by what Farrell's was showing, because apart from SAP GUI, the screens that we were showing in the Fiori designs were very much the same look and feel. So when you're collecting data, when you're approving data, the simplified UI is really good. From a SAP GUI point of view, yeah, we deliver it as standard. So this would be creating a request, exactly the same as what Farrell's shown you, but yeah, different layout, different UI option with bigger buttons, bigger screens, things like that. So talking of the SAP Cloud Platform, we offer the service to take customers off GUI to the cloud platform and use some of these Fiori designs. But if customers just want to take good old SAP GUI and Maestro, all the rules, all the workflow, everything will work fine and dandy within SAP GUI. If you have your own Fiori on-premise system, we can deploy our applications that you see on here to on-premise systems. The reason why we advise cloud is just because it's a lot easier and you get all the new kind of UI5 controls, because some customer systems, they have quite old versions of SAP Gateway where Fiori normally resides. So the whole user experience is a lot more simplified via the cloud platform. As you can see, we were really focusing on create, request, and task list, but we've got a load of mobile applications on here as well. I'll talk about self-service in a second and some of these KPI reports. So just moving on to things like APIs. So as part of the SAP Cloud Platform, what we're looking at really is a portal, yeah? And this portal is connected to your ECC. So if we talk about the architecture again, we've got Maestro that lives in your ECC system as transports, and then the UI layer, as I said, can sit in the cloud platform. And what we're doing, we're not holding data in the cloud, we're pulling data into the UI layer in the cloud as an optional choice for customers. Yeah, as I said, if you've got your own Fiori environment, you could use that. But the cloud platform is great because if you think about it from maybe a vendor point of view or customer onboarding, vendor onboarding, we can use services such as APIs, which I'll cover off in a minute when I talk about vendor portals. So APIs, just for people's kind of background to it really, APIs can be kind of public-facing APIs, things like postcode checks, bank checks, things like that. You can leverage APIs, consume it within Maestro so that you can do some of your checks. So it's a very, very powerful service that resides within the SAP Cloud Platform. This is an example. So Maestro Vendor Portal. So obviously, as Farrell's was showing you earlier, we might want to create a request. I'm a buyer. I might want to create a request for a new vendor onboarding. Now, I'm not authorized here, so I wouldn't get the right layout of the screen, but I could request a new vendor. I could enter an email address. Maestro would ping off that email address to the vendor. The vendor would then register on the portal, for example. Yeah. Now, I've already registered here, so I'm going to log in. So this is just an example of what a vendor might see. So we could start requesting information here. So whether it's a new onboarding or whether it's a change. So if that vendor needs to make changes to his bank details, for example, or addresses, he can do so in the portal. The portal will bring that into the Maestro core engine and workflow it to the right approval groups. So nothing gets changed until it's gone through its kind of governance cycle. So again, this is a great reason why we use the SAP Cloud Platform. And it's, yeah, very good. So not only are we getting information from the vendor, but we can check their information real time via APIs. Yeah. So a powerful, powerful feature. And then finally, just to cover off analytics. So obviously we've just been showing you how to create requests, how to use the workflow. We've got apps such as track requests. So for example, if you put on a request in Maestro, you might want to track it and see where it is. So this request would literally tell you who it's sitting with, how long it's been sitting with. Again, it's a mobile responsive application. Okay. In terms of UI5 things, so as a precursor to Maestro, we have things like health checks. So like we were talking about before, a UI5 report, this is a very simple one, but it's looking at the volume of material masters that have been created and changed over a period of time. So this is a kind of KPI report across material types where you've got kind of drill down information. So a nice data health KPI that you can use via the SAP Cloud Platform as part of the Maestro KPI tools. Similarly, if you're creating requests, you might want to have a look at what's going on within within Maestro. So again, we've got some nice KPIs here where I can go and have a look at what's going on with my material masters over a period of time. And I can see number of requests coming in over time by template. We were talking about templates, so the templates are the workflow and rules. So I've got this type of information. I can drill into details, but I can also look at on-time analysis. So if you remember what Farrell's was showing earlier, when you create a request in Maestro, Maestro will know how long the SLA should be. What is my service level agreement for sending this off within the business and getting data back? So you can start quite quickly looking at, right, where am I late? Have I got a bottleneck in my process somewhere? If I've got a bottleneck in my process, where is it? So I can start analyzing my data within Maestro. Yeah. So I've got on-time analysis reports, for example, and I've also got where I've got technical problems. So if I have interface errors, yeah, when I send the information from Maestro to SAP, then clearly there's something wrong, and it's either a rule or some data that's actually incorrect, and I need to enforce a rule within Maestro to stop that happening again. So Maestro is a gatekeeper to make sure that your data is always kept nice and aligned. And then lastly, just on the SAP Analytics Cloud, so this is great solution. So we're starting to move all our reports to the Analytics Cloud. And again, these are just some examples, okay? So it's showing me, again, material data that's been created and changed over a period of time. I've got my raw data here, which again is extracted from ECC or S4. And I can also look at material movement. So obviously there are some fairly standard reports in SAP to look at slow moving items and things like that. We've got all this detail as part of our reports within the SAP Analytics Cloud, all part of the Maestro suite that you can see here. So this is what we offer for customers. We think it's a really nice way to upgrade that user experience, because data typically is a bit of a turn off for people. What we find is a lot of people are still using Excel spreadsheets and they're emailing it around the organization. Whereas this way, by capturing the data in requests, having a universal work list and all these KPI charts and reports, it brings everything into the central unified entry point for users. Yeah, obviously this is the cloud platform. I've got a whole ton of our own applications on here, but we're just focusing on Maestro today. And hopefully you get the idea that we're talking about a unified entry point, a universal entry point for users. So for those of you that haven't looked at SAP Analytics Cloud, do so. It's great. We're now starting to move everything from our KPI UI5 reports into SAC, SAP Analytics Cloud. And as I said, if you're on ECC6, that's not a problem. We offer the service of extracting that data, which previously was a bit of a challenge using SAC, but we can extract that data from ECC to our cloud platform where we can visualize some of these reports. So hopefully that gives people a nice flavor of what's available in the Maestro toolkit. I have been answering questions as we go. We finally got a quick poll here at the end. What value do you see in tools such as Maestro? So it'd be great if participants could answer that for me. And then I will wait for if there are any other questions.
Yep, thank you, Dan. You have been answering them as we're going, so that's helped. We have got a couple more. Is Maextro an alternative to SAP BDG? MDG, sorry, yeah. MDG. Sorry.
Yeah. So in short, yes, our customers are adopting Maestro as opposed to MDG, mainly because it's functionality rich, but the cost and the time and the skill that you need for Maestro is a fraction of what you need for solutions like MDG. That's about as much as I can say without getting myself into trouble.
Thank you. Next question coming up. How quickly can RDS templates be configured and adopted?
I'll let Farrell's answer that one, as is the solution owner.
Yeah, we're talking about days here rather than weeks. So if somebody adopts our RDS templates, we have all the predefined catalog from standard SAP. So if they choose to take a standard material type and standard material master processes, it can be done within days, as long as they don't have complicated.
If customers have Zs or have modified their SAP system, that's not a problem. You just need to let Maestro know about it. So you'd add in Z fields within Maestro to map to your Z fields in SAP.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Anybody has any further questions, please put them in now, as we've got a couple of minutes left. Another question, Dan. Do I need any additional steps to migrate to Maextro to S4HANA?
Do you need any? Again, I'll let Farrell's technically answer that one. As far as I'm aware, no, but I'll let Farrell's answer that.
Yeah, so if you're just migrating it via your normal migration of ECC to S4, Maestro would also be adopted to S4. You don't need any other additional patch or anything from us. All the core engine is compatible with S4 versions as well. But there will be additional features like the business partners, and you need to do additional queries in there. That's going to be a bolt-on, and then the customers will have to switch it on that themselves, so we can help customers to do it. But as regards to the core engine, the answer is no. You get migrated as part of your migration, or we get the new version from us. Those who are already on S4.
If we haven't got any more questions, Amy, I just wanted to point out to the folks that have attended today, if you like what you've seen with Maestro, just get in contact with us at inquiries@bluestonex.com. If you want to get your hands on what Maestro looks like, we can offer you a proof of concept on an isolated system. Obviously, it wouldn't be your data, but you could have a kick the tires of Maestro to see what it's like. And we're also, because Align is quite a powerful tool, we believe most customers should be running it anyway. So anybody interested in data and aligning data, again, get in contact with us. And as I've been showing, some of this cloud platform, if you were to look at taking a POC of a rapid deployment solution, you also get access to what I've been showing you here. So the look and feel of it would look like this. We've offered this to a few customers, and yeah, they've loved it. They get Maestro then when they start moving and playing around with the solution. Okay, I think we're pretty bang on with the timing as well.
There's one more question in there, Dan. I don't know if you want to answer that.
Yeah, sure. In the Q&A, right, okay. Yeah. So can Maestro be used to feed master data to multiple systems in parallel? Great question. Yeah, I should have covered this. So the important bit, so obviously we've talked about SAP data here, right? But Maestro can take a feed from pretty much anything. We've got various ways to bring information in from external systems, whether it's Salesforce, CRM, whatever it is, we can bring it into Maestro. Maestro will create a request, which will be kind of autonomous. It will be done in the background, and then it will be follow the workflow for approval. Once it's approved, we can send back to those systems, because you want to keep your systems aligned or in sync. So typically, we've done lots of work with Salesforce and CRM, where we've taken in a request, Maestro's processed it, created the master, and then sent it back to keep those systems in sync. So to answer the question, yes, it can.
Perfect, thank you very much. The slides and the recording will be available on the user group website, and if you do want to contact myself and put you in touch with Dan or the team, you can, or there's the email there to get in touch with Bluestone direct.
Right, okay, well thank you all for attending, and I am now going to go back on mute. Stay safe, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks everybody.